Welcome back to the show. James W. Ramsey joining us today live here on the Zoom and on the podcast to talk more about his marriage counseling services. And again, he is the owner of Aletheia Marriage Counseling Services, and he can help you if you go to the website. And how to spell that, just want you to make sure it's A-L, I should know, right? And I lost my screen. I can't spell it. Hello? You there, Jim?
Aletheia.
Aletheia Marriage
Yeah,
Counseling, Aletheia, marriagecounseling.com, right?
right.
Perfect. Thank you. And you're based out of Missoula County and this is Montana, but you're working with people all over, especially doing these virtual type of sessions to help, whether it's in marriage, before marriage, after marriage, during marriage. You're here to really share more about why marriages are succeeding and failing. I know you're a believer in the Gottman Institute. I've gotten to know you personally over the past few months. So, what would you like to say to your listeners today before we begin our show?
Well, I just like to offer you hope, no matter how upset you may be with your marriage right now. If you can talk about it and really listen to each other, you can begin to get in each other's shoes and begin to connect with each other and begin to work through it. Don't give up. Just take the time and slow down and listen to each other.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And for today, let's get back into the realm of things here. And it's been great. We've covered many bases about couples and being together and different fears, phobias, love, problems. And today we're going to start off by talking a little about partners and maybe feeling a little insecure about your friendships with maybe the opposite sex. Maybe your wife has a male coworker she's friends with at work. Maybe it's your girlfriend's friend at work, whoever it is. But there is that boundary and that feeling of insecurity sometimes that does come about when your partner's, friends with someone. Of the opposite sex. I've seen this time and time. I've been in this situation too, Jim. So where did
Yeah.
you want to begin with that?
Well, I think that sometimes you always want your relationship to be first.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that there's a threat to the relationship, the tendency is to try to kibosh whatever's going on out there. That's kind of like wanting to have the tallest house in town.
Yeah.
So you figure out how to demolish the other houses around that are bigger than yours. It's a defensive reaction. And what we want to do is be proactive. Address the subject with your spouse and say, you know what? I just feel like we're not spending enough time together. I want to be closer to you. I want to do more things with you, and begin proposing things to do. And then in the context that's positive, you can talk about possible boundaries. Sometimes it looks bad for one of us to be in a car with the opposite sex by ourselves
Yeah.
because someone can see that and make assumptions, or see us in a restaurant with another person. Somebody see that and make assumptions. People are not they're not afraid to do that. And I just really want to keep our relationship as rock solid as I possibly can. I want to do things together, and I just like to have boundaries that we both agree on that make sense to both of us. You just want to
Absolutely.
make sure that the way you phrase it doesn't sound really defensive and assuming the worst about them. That's the main thing.
Okay. So if someone really is insecure, what would you say to your partner about it? How do you discuss it without the other person thinking there's something going on? How do you get
Well,
more confident in a sense than for the other person too? Work on confidence.
yeah, yeah. I think the way you frame what you say is really important, and the way you say it, just calmly. And I don't think that you're having an affair or anything like that. But it just makes me concerned when you are spending some time with this individual person in settings that could look bad. You just want to assume the best about your partner, but at the
Yeah.
same time, let them know there's a concern on your part.
Yeah.
That's a hard deal. You don't want to just assume the worst and start railing on them about it.
Got it. And let me ask you then about, well, how do you work through trust issues that stem from past relationships? Kind of goes hand in hand.
Well, I think again, the big thing you've got to be willing to do is talk about difficult situations, and that, of
Mm-hmm.
course, is right up there. And the way you do that is you ask for a talk, first of all. Honey, I'd like to take some time and talk about a situation that's concerning me, and I'm sure it probably concerns you. But we've got our own backgrounds. You've had people in your life that you've been in love with, people you live with.
Mhm.
I've had people in my life. There's some people that may still want to communicate with us on email or phone or whatever. I'm just wondering if what you think about the two of us basically working to talk about those situations when they come up with each other, not initiate that sort of thing. If it does happen, we're starting to get contacts from somebody maybe that knew us before that would like to reestablish contact for whatever reasons,
Yeah.
that we're open with each other. And I don't want to have things happen that make me feel insecure when I don't want to feel insecure. And I certainly don't want to feel critical of you. So
Hmm.
can we just have an agreement between us that we work with that stabilizes and strengthens our relationship? Something like that, where you're talking we rather than you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're sharing your own vulnerability rather than attacking them.
Got it. Well, let me also ask, transparency in general. What role does that play in building trust with one another?
Well, transparency is absolutely fundamental. You have to be willing to be open and honest about anything and everything with your partner.
Hmm.
You know, if you do something dumb, be willing to tell them about it and laugh about it. Be transparent. Don't be trying to be somebody you're not. Don't be trying to look good. Just be who you are and love them with all your heart, but just be predictable. Be just yourself.
Yep.
I think our culture is kind of putting a stress on how to be charming for somebody else or how to attract somebody else or how to talk or how to this or that. I see this on
Hmm.
the internet all the time. And to me, that's really false and it's going to lead to trouble. If you're trying to project a certain image when you're dating somebody, sooner or later you're going to be yourself and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
You better be yourself right up front and stay that way.
it's so true. So I think it to be transparent is the best way. But, right, and then you also could like bite your tongue. What if the other person doesn't like you being so open and honest? Eee, and I don't want to walk on eggshells.
Well, I think that's an odd situation. Most partners want you to be transparent. They want to know where you're at and what you're thinking, what you're feeling, especially wives. They want to feel safe.
Yeah.
So I think the way to make somebody safe is to be predictable and consistent and wide open about everything you do. And if you make a mistake, admit it, and that sort of thing. Now, if your partner is sort of embarrassed or put off by you being transparent, it might be that that's in public. Maybe you
Okay.
do something that's too blunt in public, and that you have to be
Yes.
understanding. That's embarrassing to you, honey, when I admit that I'm
Very
an
good.
idiot or a jerk or whatever. But I don't want to be hiding anything from you, and I want to be who I am. But at the same time, I want to respect your feelings, and I don't want to say things inappropriate in front of other people.
Got it. Love it. I'm all about transparency. What about, would you say boundaries? We talked a little bit about this, but like, what about the boundaries that you should establish to prevent infidelity?
Well, again, I think boundaries are something you probably should talk about together rather than just walk in and get on their case for not having them. There's a book called Boundaries that might be worth reading together. But the biggest thing is just to see that, there's some things we need to understand and agree upon. For example, what are boundaries between us and our families, or our parents, or our mother, or our father, or our sister, or brother? Are there times when they may want me to do something that really kind of threatens you? It's like they want my time to help them when I'm in the middle trying to help you. Or maybe they're trying to get me to go along with some vacation plan or some holiday plan that I know in my heart you really aren't very comfortable with. You'd like to have Christmas here. Well, if there's going to be one way or the other, it's going to be you, not my partner, not my parent. It's not going to be, I'm not going to bend over backwards
Hmm.
to please mama when I know you want to go to Fairmont Hot Springs or some special place, with us and the kids or have it at home. So boundaries means who comes first. And I think really any marriage therapist will say your immediate family comes first. Your spouse comes first over parents and siblings and friends.
Yeah. All right. I believe in that too. And I just hope, you're giving advice to couples all over, and it's important out there that, this is difficult because you got to let people know you're not alone. And
Mhm.
the work that you do as a marriage counselor, I mean, you've had so many years of experience in this, very well versed, well knowledgeable, and really it's okay to ask for help and to listen to someone sometimes. And we talked about this pre-marriage counseling. It's always good to get a head start on it even before there's a problem, right? Get to know each other and learn each other's boundaries, learn about your past, and talking and communicating, I think, is always best. And what about if there is that breach of trust, which can happen sometimes? How do you forgive? How can a couple forgive each other?
Well, I think that some of these values that we've had in our culture for years, about the importance of forgiving, for example, which is predominantly taught through the Bible and Judeo-Christian backgrounds, uh, a lot of people just are really hardcore about, if you blow it, you're gone. If you do this wrong, you're out of here. And I think it's really important that we just have an attitude that, but by the grace of God go I. I mean, I'm not perfect. I could do something wrong and need to have your forgiveness. And so to be willing to forgive is really fundamental, I think, to having a good marriage or to do well with your children or friends. You need to be a person that's not just going to shut the door on them and kick them out if you don't like what they do or with how they act or what they say. I think you model forgiving, and then maybe other people forgive you. It goes both ways. And so, talking about what happened, owning part of it, realize that an infidelity usually has to do with vulnerability. Our relationship maybe hasn't been as close as it could have been in the last year or two, and you were in a compromising situation. That could have happened to me. I don't. Neither one of us think we would ever do such a thing, but it's possible if we get into certain conditions. So we want to be kind and gentle and forgiving, and then work on whatever the problem was so we don't have it again. Uh, so that's kind of what goes with having a promise, vows. Rough things can happen,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Your
You
partner
gotta,
might be paralyzed from the neck down when they're 23. What are you going to do now?
yeah,
You know,
for
you
better
got
or
you got to
for
stay there and take
worse.
care of them. Yeah.
Well, let's also talk a little bit about, what if you, I hate to say this, I've been there, done this, where you feel like you can't trust that person. And maybe it's time you're picking up their phone, you're looking through it. Something in your gut is telling you something's maybe there. You're suspicious of something, but you don't want to be that person, but then you also need to be that person. But that's a fine little line to walk on. So, could you talk a little bit about maybe how a couple can handle suspicions of infidelity without jumping to conclusions, Jim?
Well, you're asking a very real and a very common question,
Mm-hmm.
a difficult question. And your main point, I think, is you don't want to assume the worst. You don't want to appear to be jumping on them because you're just looking for a chance to find them doing something
Yeah.
wrong. Um, and I think part of that maybe is to really discuss the boundary issue and have an agreement about our boundaries up front. And then if something looks suspicious, maybe another agreement is that we don't try to hide our phones or block messages or block things because we don't want to make the other partner feel suspicious. So try to be as open as you can. You can use my phone, you can look at anything you want, try to keep things so it don't feel suspicious because if somebody gets secretive, that kind of gets the wheels turning in your mind.
Yeah.
But it's a
Very
difficult question, really is. Um, but
well,
if you
Jim.
need to know, if you need to know what's going on, you need to know what's going on,
Yeah, I
you
agree.
know?
What would you say, how can couples ensure that they attain trust over the long term?
Well, again, the more you connect with each other, because connection is the foundation of everything. And by connecting, we mean talking alone together, having lunches together, having dinners together, going on vacations together. And of course, when you have the kids, the thought is we got to do everything with kids. Not so.
Yeah,
You need to go on dates alone and have babysitters. You need to invest time in your courtship. Courtship is a lifelong experience. It's not just to get married. And so the more you build your relationship, the better it's going to be. The more you neglect it and put other things ahead of your relationship, the more danger you're going to have because those circumstances set you up for trouble. So it's something you build day by day. And you need both of you to feel really, really safe and really loved and really secure because that's what we need as humans.
Yeah.
We need to feel connected.
Well, let's remind everyone how we can reach out to you. Would you mind sharing?
Yes, you can contact me at my website if you like. You call me on the phone. I carry a cell phone in my pocket, so that's probably pretty simple. Just 406-370-3515, and I'll either pick up and talk to you right off, or I'll respond to your message. But I
Perfect.
guess I'm old-fashioned. I like to talk to people. We're going to need to do that at some point if we're going to work together, and might as well start that way.
Aw, very true. Thank you so much. And let's continue the conversation here again with Jim Ramsey. We're talking a lot about trust here today, and breach of trust. And let's talk about maybe some ways we can rekindle intimacy after years of marriage, because that most of the time dies
Hmm.
down, right?
Yeah. Well, since I do these intensive weekends, it's sort of geared for people that kind of got a little derailed and want to reconnect. A lot of people that are in the middle of their marriage, the empty nesters, kids have just left. They really want to reconnect and build the romance back. And so the things that we talk about is not only learning and practicing effective skills, but also structuring their future together. Now, what's this last half going to look like? What do we want to do? And start really thinking about retirement. Where are we going to live? What are we going to do? Saving actively together, uh, going on trips together, doing things maybe you've never done before in your marriage because now you have the time. Maybe now you have resources. It's time to go to Hawaii or it's time to go on a cruise ship somewhere. Uh, People need to realize that if you want to feel the way you used to feel, you need to do what you used to do. And there's sometimes people who go for years without really feeling close to each other. They're just doing their jobs. And if you want to feel differently, you got to start doing things differently.
Good point. Now, what about sex life? That usually goes down as well, right? But how do you maintain that healthy sex life when life gets busy?
Well, I think sometimes, especially in our culture, we get so busy and so tired that, we just don't feel like it for days and weeks at a time, especially when the babies are small and so forth. There are times when you just typically don't have much sex because you are just absolutely shot. But the key to feeling sexual is to realize it's an important part of your life, and you feel more sexual when you feel close. That's emotional intimacy. And the more you look in each other's eyes and talk and kid each other and flirt with each other and do the things you used to do when you're courting and have a lot of humor in the marriage and you're physical with each other, you kiss and hug each other, then the sexual part is more natural. But in addition to that, sometimes it's important with busy lives to just say, sometime each weekend, let's make time.
Mm-hmm.
Or, have a favorite day when you could do something. Or it's nice to have little surprises like an afternoon that you could pull off sometimes, afternoon delight. But you got to think about this. It's part of your relationship and it's important.
Got it. Absolutely is. Well, also, as we continue the conversation, again, Jim Ramsey is joining us, and we're talking all about couples and, again, his marriage counseling services, which he offers. And let's talk about emotional intimacy play. How much does that, what role should I say, does that play in a physical relationship?
Well, emotional intimacy is the foundation of a physical relationship. If you try to have a marriage that's basically just physical, it's going to become a problem, especially for the wife, because it just feels like she's being used, and 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 she might think, well, I've just got to be a sexual acrobat for him, and that's what it's going to take. Well, if that's what you think and that's what you try to do, but it's not going to work very well, I'll tell you that from my experience. You need to feel emotionally close. You need to feel really cherished and cared for, and not just there to have sex with. I had a referral come to me from actually from Pakistan that was kind of interesting. Friend of his is in a relationship, and they want to know if I'd counsel. He wanted to know if I would counsel them. He going on to tell me that both of them were involved in the sexual business. They were the male and the female were I forget the word now, but we you meet people and you take them out, but the whole idea is sexual. And so I said, well, if that's their orientation towards sex,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a problem
Yeah.
unless they're prepared to absolutely make their primary marriage relationship an emotional and physical, not just another one of the people they have sex with.
Yeah.
And
Very
sex can be
true.
really, really empty. I mean, really empty if you don't have it feeling connected. Now, granted, if you're out there getting paid for it, that may be something people want to do. It doesn't sound very good to me. But, if they're doing that with other people and then they want to be married, that's kind of, I said, I don't know about that. I don't know if I even want to be involved in working with those folks, you know?
Yeah, no, no, I get it. Well, also, in our last few minutes together, we want to talk more about maybe give us some tips. What if you're with someone, your sex drive is mismatched, and people are different, so you have to love someone, but there's a big struggle sometimes with that.
Fairly often, there'll be one person in the marriage that desires sex more often than the other. Most often, it's the man, but not
Mm,
always. I've seen a number of situations where wives want more intimacy than the husband wants.
wow.
But the thing is, if you focus on that, it gets worse. If you focus on being together and doing things, it begins to get better. And I think an attitude that is not sort of focused on I'm being rejected, but focused on we're different. Some people are more musical than other people. Some people are more artistic than other people. Some people want to do this more. And so to take that difference in that context, it's not personal. It's not that they don't like me. They've got some issues they had to deal with from childhood, this, that, or the other. Try to be accepting of it and try not to focus on it because what you focus on grows. And then it's more and more apparent. I mean, you never want to be with me. And then that doesn't make them want to be more with you. So, try to be as accepting and understanding that we have differences, and that can be one of them, and then work at other kinds of ways to be together and be physically warm and responsive. And you'll find that things will happen more often that way than trying to change the other person and make them like you.
Got it. Good to know. And what about let's for our last question. Is it already our last question? Oh my goodness. And this is always happens, right? I think it goes so quick every week. But
It
we
really
do have
does.
time for one more if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Want to know how can couples really address feelings of sexual dissatisfaction? Because that could also hurt someone's ego, hurt someone's mentality.
Mhm.
It's another I'm sitting on the edge of my seat type thing. So how can we, talk to each other open and honestly without hurting each other's feelings?
Well, the first thing is to learn how to talk about sex with each other without it being so weird. You can talk about where you like your back scratched. That's not too weird, right?
Oh,
If somebody's massaging you, move to the left or right or whatever, So to be able to talk about your sexual relationship in a very normal, accepting way helps a lot. Now, then you have behaviors that one person wants to do, the other doesn't. There's some behaviors that a wife doesn't want to engage in. And she needs to say, honey, I love you and I love all these things, but this one thing I don't want to for the following reasons. There's danger of disease or there's this, that, or the other kind of thing. And the other person's got to respect that. There's a lot of ways to enjoy pleasure with sex without doing every single thing any human being on the face of the earth does. You know, as a couple, you have the right to have preferences and you have a right to say certain things are I just won't want to do. And that
yeah,
should be acceptable. That shouldn't be something that's going to be a big problem. We got to talk about every time we make love. Why won't you this? Why won't you? Well, that's not going to make any difference. It's going to make it worse. So
true.
go with what works and
All right.
try not to be pushing your will over on another person in any area. It doesn't that sexual area is just like anything else. You don't want somebody bossing you around or demanding things.
All right. I agree. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us. And Jim, how can we contact you?
Well, you can call me on the phone. Just pick up your little phone and dial 406-370-3515. All day pick up, we can leave a message.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you here and great job again today. Are we back next week, Jim?
Yes.
Yay, love it, love it. Such good questions and always a pleasure having you. And to all of our listeners, please stay tuned. We'll be right back with more after the break. Jim, enjoy the rest of your day and yeah, enjoy the weather, right? Getting nicer out there.
Yeah, the fall is my favorite time of the year.
Mine too. Ditto,
Yeah.
ditto, ditto. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you again for being here. See you soon.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.